A very good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all who are joining today this very important event, which is we are launching Handprint Care Handbook. And we welcome on behalf of all the institution, partner institution, and Engagement Global for this event. And with this, I would like to request our director of Center for Environment Education, Mr. Karthikeya Sarabhai, for the opening remarks session. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. And it's really wonderful to at least be together and see each other after this whole long COVID period, but many friends. And just to say that many of us have started on this journey much before. And it's nice to now today come to a stage where we are about to launch this very important work, which is for teachers, teacher educators, aimed at the primary school. We really wanted to thank Engagement Global, especially for having the faith in this group and supporting us. For those who might not know, the 5 institutes have virtually met for half an hour to an hour every Tuesday. And it's been a unique experience of working together and building a group and working on this. And it's wonderful today to be here. So, Preeti, that's all just now, but I think we request Nicola Schumacher to make her opening comments. Nicola, you'll have to unmute yourself here.
Sorry, it doesn't really work, but now, thank you. Hello, and a very warm welcome also from me in the name of Engagement Global. I'm very happy to see you in this virtual way, and I'm happy that we could make happen this with all these different countries and time zones and to this very special event. And thank you, Karthikeya, for this warm words of welcome from your side. As you know, Engagement Global is coordinating this ESD ExpertNet since 2010. And mostly all of you know what the ESD ExpertNet stands for, but to make it short, it's a multi-stakeholder partnership. And we are happy to have all the partners here from Germany, India, Mexico, and South Africa. And to work on all these really great products and projects which have the vision to ensure ESD in all the areas of formal education. I'm really happy to be here today with you, and I couldn't work with you each Tuesday, but I'm really happy that I could be part of it, and just to see the work is going on. Maybe you want to know why in 2010 the BMZ and Engagement Global, it was in former time, it was choose these 4 countries working together. And it's been first steps. The countries needed to have done first steps and showing ESD already. That's why the BMZ chosen these 4 countries to work together in a special network in the center of ESD. And I think they did a really good job by choosing these 4 countries on these 4 continents. With the adoption of the Global Action Program on ESD and the Agenda 2030 by the global community, the work of the ESD ExpertNet became a model for global cooperation is an area key for fostering sustainable development and achieving all the SDGs. And I'm really proud of it in the moment. And since the foundation of ESD ExpertNet, partners have jointly developed various education programs and materials. And today we're here for a special one. A key quality of these programs is to bring multiple perspectives together from different countries as well from different stakeholders, thereby reflecting an important principle of ESD in providing practical tools to think global and act local. In the same spirit, the Handprint care materials offer a rich resource for how to put ESD into practice in the classroom. It builds on the Handprint approach, putting a focus on ethics and using the SDGs as a key framework as well as a teaching and learning tool at the same time. I really want to thank all the partners involved in this project. The National Council, of course, you, the National Council of Education Research and Training in India, the University of Duisburg-Essen in Germany, the Universidad Veracruzana in Mexico, and Rhodes University in South Africa. I'm normally just used to say the pre-names, not the full names, I remember them. More especially our colleagues, Rob, Krista, John, Juan Carlos, and all the others for the commitment and expertise, Jim for providing the enthusiastic support, and of course CE team heading by you, Katikea, for the energy and stamina and sensitivity and coordinating this work around Handprint care, and of course my own team here with Atusa, who coordinate everything at EG's heart. So to come to the end, we're very proud, I'm very proud and grateful to have you been supporting you and joining you. And I hope we also do this in the future, staying together, working together, and really happy to see you again. Thank you, Katigya.
Thank you. Kriti, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kartikeya bhai and Nicola, for giving us what does this event mean to us, and finally we are there and launching this handbook today. So there are a few hands raised for the participants. There is a question answer session at later in the session, so you may like to put your questions or comments in the chat or Q&A. So we will be taking it later. And just to brief you about agenda today, so with the opening remarks, we will be launching the handbook, and then before that we'll be seeing a short video on Handprint project, and then launch will happen, and then we will hear from our authors who have actually put together this entire handbook, which is very interesting. And then we will also have commentators who will comment from their own experiences, who are ESD educators and practitioners, and then we will have question answer sessions. There is also a very important part talking about the process and how these educational resources under Handprint Care project has emerged. So this is the overall agenda. With this, we'll be sharing with you a short video on this project. So I'll just share my screen.
Handprint Care, an ethics-led action learning ESD pedagogy for primary schools. The roots of Handprint Care are found in the imperative of a 10-year-old girl Shrija from a school in Hyderabad in India. She expressed a wish to take positive action for future sustainability. Her handprint has become a symbol for an international network of learner-led ESD programs of action supported by the Center for Environment Education in India. Over the past few years, Handprint Care developed true stories to engage local matters of concern for an ESD training of trainers collaboration. The collaboration involved partners from 4 different countries: Mexico, South Africa, Germany, and India, and supported by Engagement Global and ESD ExpertNet. This working group set out to clarify the inclusion of ESD in school subject disciplines. Handprint Care is centered towards working with the Sustainable Development Goals and developing the ESD competencies needed to recognize concerns, assess value, and act for the common good. The partner institutions have developed educational resources for teacher educators of primary schools between the age of 6 and 13. The Handprint Care pedagogy is a teacher-mediated, student-led, inquiry-based learning process. A 4-quadrant schema has been developed for this deliberative action learning. In Quadrant 1, real-life storytelling and story sharing has been used to raise interest and help students to understand different perspectives of issues in hand. This prepares students for local in-depth inquiry work in Quadrant 2. In Quadrant 2, students gather information, collect data, and develop opinions for deliberating sustainable development. In Quadrant 3, students start to think critically and analyze to design sustainable solutions to resolve local matters of concern. In Quadrant 4, students try out sustainable solutions, make lifestyle changes through small-scale change challenge activities. The Handprint Care pedagogy is a holistic approach as it helps students take actions after understanding and educating oneself about the problem in hand. Educational resources include theory chapters, thematic exemplars, picture stories, videos, presentations, lesson plans, and thumbnails. These educational materials will be available on the www.handprint.in website. These rich and diverse ready-to-use products will provide the much-needed visibility and tailwind for ESD 2030 discourse and act as a tool usable globally.
In brief, what is this how handprint concept emerged and then how it evolved to handprint care. So this is just to give you a background on handprint. With this, I would like to request again Kartika Bhai to invite our special guest to launch the handbook and tell us how we are going to launch virtually.
Well, it's lovely to have everyone here, and I would ask Professor Charles Hopkins, who's been associated with this process almost from the beginning. And it's also lovely to have Haila here today, who was actually in that photograph when we first announced the handprint at the UNESCO conference. So Charles, over to you. We want you to launch it and then say something yourself.
Great. Oh, thanks so much. And my congratulations and thanks to ESD ExpertNet for the honor of being part of this launch of the Teacher Education Handbook. You know, I think back, all of us really agree that the handprint has proven to be a really powerful metaphor with imagery that people of all ages really can relate to. Many of us have used this right from the very beginning, back in around 2004. It builds a wonderful parallel between the handprint and the footprint. Right? The idea of a little girl in grade 4 coming forward with a powerful image that is spread around the world, and that also the ecological footprint that came from a professor at a university, you know, the PhD and his graduate students working. And the idea that powerful imagery and things that we can work upon to bring about positive change can emerge from many different ways. But the handbook, the idea of the handbook really adds to what we've been working with individually. We all know that the handprint can localize sustainability into meaningful, relevant action and so on. And so this is so important. But now with the handbook, the handprints for change, which, by the way, you know, it really aligns with UNESCO's Transforming Education Initiative and the report on the futures of education. So it really aligns with where education should be moving, recognizing that education, not only as a common good, but as acting as a common good, where those actions are not necessarily limited only to actions for humans, right? So the idea of the handbook can build on many of the aspects of transforming education, the education we need for a more sustainable future. but we'll learn more of that from the authors and so on in the remarks to come. Let me just reinforce one thing before I officially launch it. The Handprint story, since inception, has been one of collaboration. It's started with a student, but I mean, many people have used the handprint symbol. It wouldn't have traveled and gone anywhere without a teacher that was tuned into it. So the teacher realizing the metaphor, but then it would have stopped if the teacher had not gone forward. And so it then went to C, and it would have stopped at C if C had not taken it forward and had gone on to a ministry. And now we have ESD ExpertNet building on it again, and with the assistance of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development there in Germany, it has taken another launch. And so it's up to us, all of you who are joining us this morning from around the world, to see what we can add and how we can add our own personal handprint. And so let me congratulate ESD ExpertNet. Let me also declare the Handprints for Change, a teacher education handbook, now formally launched. And please, everyone, join us in raising your hand and welcoming the handbook. It is now formally launched. Back to you, Kartikeya and Preeti.
Thank you so much, Professor Hopkins, for that. I think we now go to the authors, and I'm going to ask.
Kartik, there's a short video, just
to launch it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thank you for that, Preeti. Nice to see. We will ensure that all of you have a hard copy soon, so you can also hold a hard copy. You already have, many of you seen the soft copy, and we have 132 other people who are watching this just now, and I hope all of you will have access to this. I think we go now to the comments by the authors. And may I start with Professor Rob Donoghue? Rob.
Thanks, Kartikeya. I'm just sharing my screen. I've been playing with children all my life as a teacher and learning with and from them. And when Hala came back from India, from the official launch of Handprint, she was so excited and she said, Rob, we must research this. We must actually do more work on this idea because it's going to grow and we need to know more about it. And what I've been asked to do today is to just give a brief introduction to the research, because this is a key aspect of teacher education, to be researching handprint action learning together. So as Juan Carlos said, we invite you to enter the story, to join us in the Handprint Care Handbook. And the key that got us going was a question from the NCRT, and that was around how do we reconcile the competencies for ESD and the curriculum competencies. In other words, how do we take up handprint type learning in curriculum settings? So we asked this question, how can learning for more just and sustainable futures be activated by expanding conventional subject teaching? And the first part of the book reflects this. It reflects the way that our project developed around formative research papers that we wrote as authors who were trying to sort out our ideas and begin to work together to produce the materials. And of course, working with teachers on course-supported design research work. So there were multiple layers to the work that was happening. And we started by drawing in the best that we could find, like the UNESCO Sustainability Starts with Teachers, for looking at planning, learning together. And this we put into the origins of Handprint and as an overall planning framework. So we were borrowing, writing, researching, and designing material with teachers as we went along. A key was understanding ethics-led learning. And here, this was a really important part that started with the hand of a young child and grows in interactions with teachers. And then working with the Sustainable Development Goals to activate learning-led change in classroom settings. This was also one of the earlier chapters that we started. And then clarifying the action learning progressions. This was a key area of looking at how can we take good teaching and make it better, more focused on the learners and more focused on the concerns of everyday life. Then really important was, and Krista's going to elaborate a little bit on this later, on the work with real-world stories for story sharing startup for primary schools and beyond. And then the clarifying of the competencies and work with the SDGs, and also working from the competencies that are specified in the curriculum. So all of these areas began to emerge as we worked with heritage issues and ethics in different approaches that people were taking up. And then key to us as teachers was, and teacher educators, is the assessment of learning. And some wonderful innovative work has happened regarding assessment in the classrooms. And then we started to realize when UNESCO brought out their concept of the new social contract, that clarifying a shared social contract was central. So we invite you to look into this compilation of research and ideas that's happened and to explore it in your way. And what we're finding is that the teachers are jumping in to a chapter that asks a question that's relevant for them. And then they're able to build learning through practice and work with the students in their classroom. And it's been an exciting project. Every Tuesday we've met and talked about it. We've written about it, and the fruits of those writings have come out through the research and the work with teachers that are there to be shared more widely. There are no explicit stipulations, but there are invitations to explore, develop your own ways through being inspired by young children with their handprints and the needs and concerns in a local area. So that's the best I can do to introduce you to the work through the research. There were 25 papers written in the period of our research, and a lot of these are still going on. A lot of the work has been done in Mexico and in South Africa on the research, but we've been an international research team working on these ideas together. Right, there you go. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Rob. Can I go to Dr. Krista Hans?
Yes, you can. Thank you very much, Kati Krieger. Preeti, do you have this one slide? Just as an illustration. So I just start. So, dear colleagues, as we just heard from Rob in this handbook, action learning is framed as a 4-stage progression. And this has been used to structure handprint care materials around real-world true startup stories. And now I would like to take a short a closer look at the model, and I would like to explain what role startup stories play. And to answer the question, how can story sharing activate ESD? So conventional subject teaching and learning often focuses on the giving and receiving of knowledge. Sometimes abstract concepts are taught without integrating effective elements, and these may be poorly situated in a local cultural setting. This is where the use of inspiring and engaging stories to activate story sharing as a learning process can be a powerful educational tool. Startup stories support an open narrative process and deeper communication. So children react to a story, they ask questions, share their own experiences that can be similar or quite different from those in the story. They hear various points of view, share different social voices, and present and discuss their tentative understanding of scientific theories. So working with startup stories thus helps teachers to share a topic in an engaging form and to bring ideas, theories, and concepts from the textbook, if used to life, to include intergenerational knowledge as cultural heritage, and to combine this with sustainability concerns of the present and future. And of course, in addition, story sharing contributes to revisit what is already known, to build common knowledge, or to recognize a gap in the knowledge. And local indigenous stories can help, for example, to understand the concepts of change and continuity that have occurred over time. Teachers and learners can use talk to walk through their science ideas in co-defining and co-learning processes. And these are, and you all know it, so central to ESD. And at the same time, talk has always been highly valued, and not only in primary classrooms, in terms of literacy and the potential to develop critical thinking and effective communication. So in this way, we approach ESD as a learning journey emerging around story sharing and developing with the acquisition of subject knowledge. And this also opens up the importance of stories for the whole entire learning process. And let's have a short look at this illustration. So story sharing, quadrant 1, Q1, encourages students to share their experience and ideas, to clarify ethical solidarity, and to raise questions for finding out more. This will take them into local depth inquiry, quadrant 2, Q2, and help them to clarify their formative ideas through mediated conversations that can be carried out or into deliberative modeling. And from this, the students become able to design sustainable solutions for emerging concerns, quadrant 3. And finally, with the rising purpose and compassion, learners can explore and report on the change challenges they might undertake to resolve the matters of concern. All this is at the nexus of local concerns and their change challenges, which are often engaged with as change projects, quadrant 4. So the task sequencing progression offers teachers a wide range of teaching practices to support the activation of ethics-led learning around matters of concern that link to the subject they teach and the knowledge that they are entrusted with to convey to their students. And in this way, the key tenet of learner-led agency can develop around handprint, action learning for the common good, and as Chuck just told, at the same time as acting as a common good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Krista. I think that was really, really clear for everyone to see. Can I now go to JC, Juan Carlos?
Thank you very much, Kartikeya. Yeah, I have to say that I'm very happy to be here. I'm really glad to be part of this wonderful experience, and I really appreciate the invitation to be part of this group and all the work that we did in this collaboration. I think I want to say thank you to the CE team to organize all this wonderful work, and of course with the support of EG, and of course to my colleague, to the authors of this material. And instead of talking about the book or the handbook and the materials, I want to say in a sort of personal storytelling my experience with this project and the evolution of the materials that we are presenting today. For me, this project started probably in November of 2010 in South Africa, when I met Rob, and we automatically made some kind of click with some concerns that we shared in Mexico and of course in South Africa. And it had been 12 years since I started this academic collaboration with Rob. And of course, for me, Rob is a kind of mentor for me, and I'm just, because probably a mentee, Rob's mentee, and not a colleague, but we agreed that we were interested in similar and related theoretical frameworks and several concerns that I want to mention for this purpose. One first concern, the sociological crisis faced by indigenous peoples in Mexico and South Africa, and the legacy of this atrocious modernity that has left significant social and ecological footprints in both contexts, and living populations, indigenous populations, at critical risk. This is one of the concerns that we found in this first meeting when I met Rob. And another concern was probably the one in which we began to work together, learning about how the indigenous peoples of both Mexico and South Africa learn and make process of innovation when facing socio-ecological challenges that modernity has left in countries and as Mexico and South Africa. And the last concern we shared back then is, and I think it continues today, the impact of the colonial legacy, particularly with regard to educational processes and formal education. Here the concern turned to the exclusion of indigenous knowledge in formal educational processes. And this is after years working together and publishing some articles and participating in some academic forums, and of course within this Handprint Care project, the question of how to incorporate heritage knowledge and the knowledge that it's produced in everyday life was still somewhat in the air. And it was when Rob came with this 4-quadrant proposal after Anne Edwards, which we adapted to different contexts, and from which the materials that we are presenting today were produced. So what I think is the potential readers of this material will find answers to that question about how to incorporate intergenerational knowledge, indigenous knowledge that is produced in everyday life in educational processes, and above all, how to incorporate concerns related to sustainability in formal educational processes. And one thing that I learned working within this project, and I want to repeat again, I'm very happy to be part of it, that Charles already mentioned that it's very significant and powerful, the imagery of the hand, because with the hand in education, we used to teach and learn just from this part of the body, and the hands are very important in the educational process. So I just want to finish my intervention saying that for me, learning and teaching using our hands is very important, because with our hands, we take care of, we feel, we create, we protect what is fragile, we caress, we pat on the back, and we relieve the pain of another being, and we help lift those who have fallen off the ground. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the commentators of this handbook, and please go through the material and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, JC. Can I now turn to Dr. Shimre? John?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's been such an honor to be part of this group, the real ESD experts. So it's been an honor for me to be associated with this group since the past few years now. And I also thank my organization to give me this opportunity to be part of this formally. Today, at this point, I will be sharing quickly about how to adapt the pedagogy into the curriculum. So you must have got some idea that this handbook has been developed keeping in mind that teachers can use this as an open resource, which can be easily adapted based on the local and specific school subject requirement. This means that it can be used in the teaching learning of any subject discipline. So I really feel that this flexibility provided by this handbook is what makes it unique. Handprint care pedagogy works very well where the existing curriculum is interdisciplinary in nature, I would say, or where it is thematic, or where issue-based curriculum is followed. For example, in India, we have a subject called environmental studies, which is studied in grade 3 to 5, wherein components of science and social science have been integrated. So in such cases, handprint care pedagogy can be used as such. But more importantly, this handprint care pedagogy will provide an excellent opportunity to teachers in situations where they have to teach subject disciplines. As we know, in conventional teaching of subject discipline, teachers focus only on the subject they teach. A science teacher would focus on the science aspect alone. Similarly, a social science teacher would focus on the social aspect. But this handprint care pedagogy will facilitate or enable those teachers to move beyond the disciplinary approach that is generally adopted. For example, while teaching the concept of pollination in science, in addition to the process of pollination, the role of pollination in biodiversity, food production, livelihood, economy, and so on, all these are integrated. And thereby, it will make learning more holistic, meaningful, and more effective. You will see more such examples in the exemplars that have been included in this handbook. In the handprint care pedagogy, students are exposed to the challenges or to the matters of concern of the place they live in, which have been already spoken out by the previous speakers. And students are also introduced about shared responsibility. They are co-engaged to assess their values and also arrive at their own sustainable solutions to the problems or the matters of concern. So this whole experience that students will get will result in significant learning amongst them, as it provides learning experiences that will be truly significant in terms of their lives. Such transformative learning is the need of the hour for a more just and sustainable futures. As we know, education throughout the world is now focused on developing skills and competencies to prepare students to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Handprint care pedagogy caters to this. And the timing of the launch of this handbook is crucial, especially in the context of India, I would say, because we just brought out the new national education policy in 2020. And all efforts in the area of education is directed towards achieving the recommendations laid down in that document. And interestingly, it almost appears as if this handbook has been deliberately developed as a complementary resource for the policy document. I say this because many of the areas that this policy document emphasizes, such as experiential and holistic learning, local and contextualization, traditional and indigenous knowledge, developing skills and competencies, problem solving, ethics, compassion, and so on. And all these have been addressed in this handbook. But not just in India, I'm sure this handbook will be equally useful to teachers and teacher educators in other parts of the world as well. We have also introduced in this handbook an innovative and interesting pedagogy of picture storytelling using the Japanese kamishibai. Again, the details are available in the handbook. You will find those things. I'm not going to go into that. So that's in a brief how you can use this in your teaching learning process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chang. And the NCRT director also wishes all of us well. He said Dr. Chang will represent him at this meeting, but there is a full backing of the National Council of Education Research and Training to this program, which is really good. As Chang just mentioned, this is a generic handbook, and we had many discussions with Engagement Global in the beginning. What constitutes a generic version? Something which can then be adapted and used in various contexts in various countries. And I believe a German version is already underway, where the translation work has begun. But one would like to see it happening in a number of places. It is also generic in the sense that while this is done with the view of the primary, everyone feels that with some modification, it can be done at several levels. And we had our own fights about how that can be done and how it cannot be done. And so what we have written in the book is for the primary and beyond, because it has got the potential. And as Dr. Shimre said, that when you have separate subject learnings, how do you bring it together? Whenever we started environmental education work many years ago, we had this major problem of bringing together what is taught in the classroom and what children observe and see and know outside. And I have often talked about the cow eating birds, because a child at that time had just seen vultures on a dead carcass outside the window. And the teacher said, no, that's not correct. The correct answer is that birds eat grains and insects. And so you had this disconnect between the real world and the world which you were supposed to see. And although educational thinking has said how it should be done, how it could bring it together, one is still wanting how one can do it with all the pressures the teacher still has on finishing the curriculum and integrating external stories, external realities into this. There was also this need, which the handprint represents, of children feeling that they don't want to grow up and be 18 before they start doing something about the planet. People want to do something today, however small or large it is. And I think what this handprint care methodology does is brings all these ideas together in a very doable fashion. And in fact, Preeti will tell us, she's just conducted a 3-day training program for a number of teachers in India who want to use this methodology, just leading up to this launch today. The book itself is for teachers, teacher trainers actually, and teacher trainers and will use, but several of the ideas will then get. So it's something which grows. And as Professor Hopkins mentioned in the beginning, the entire idea of the handprint is something which is generic in its own way, and people interpret it differently, people take it differently. It represents care. Professor Hopkins is also represent how you hold hands together how it represents networking. And as Rob said, Hyla carried that little message to South Africa, and we were very pleasantly pleased many years ago to see 10 little booklets which Rob had worked on. I don't know what year, but it must have been in the 2010 or something of that nature, to see it being action. So to see people interpret it and take an idea forward and own it, and it's not, and it belongs to all of us, and the very origin of it in a little girl in a school. So that's something very powerful about it. I would now like to go to 3 people who have not been listed as authors, but have played a very significant part in these publications. And I would like to start with asking Atusa to say something. Atusa?
Thank you very much, Katikea. Yes, I mean, it's I'm very grateful to be part of this process as well, and to be here at this launch. And my view is, of course, the view of somebody who has been in the role of supporting the process and not, being an author. Yeah, for me, it's been an extremely interesting process, and I have learned a lot personally. And when I think back, yeah, I mean, our active support to this project started basically in 2019. It was, I remember it very well, because when we met physically at the first workshop in Essen, I was pregnant. And just the day before yesterday, my daughter, my second daughter, celebrated her 3rd birthday. So she's 3 years old. And yeah, in a way, yeah, I find it, yeah, I think it's a sign, that we started with her, and now, she's turned 3 and we celebrate this launch. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this. And of course, coming from this supporting role, there has been also challenges related to the process. I mean, all the administrative side that is linked to this, the contracts that had to be extended again and again, because, we thought, the handbook will be ready by then, but then, we had to extend it again. And I mean, I remember I announced here at our department that we will launch the handbook several times. And at some point, I just stopped announcing it because, I thought, okay, they will think, what are they doing there? Yeah, so finally we're there. And yeah, I'm very happy. And I'm extremely grateful for the cooperation with CE, because all along this process, it's been always, very, very, yeah, uncomplicated, really, at an eye-to-eye level. And Katikea and I, we have always been able to meet on short notice, sending WhatsApp messages. Oh, let's talk, we need to see how to move further, when things were stuck. And yeah, I think that has made things, yeah, much easier. And I've really enjoyed this. So thank you very much for this. But also, all the contact I've had throughout these years with the authors, the discussions we had, not only at the weekly meetings, but also bilateral discussions. That has been extremely helpful. Yeah, so, hearing your views and trying to understand, your positions and your concerns, where you're coming from, and then basically trying to identify the common ground. I mean, that's what I've been trying to throughout these years to yeah, support this process and move forward with developing the material. And for me, so yeah, this development of an international material, as Katikea also pointed out, I've perceived this as something extremely enriching, because yeah, it's been really about bringing different perspectives into the discussion. And I could see and hear that, in your weekly meetings, coming from different education systems. I mean, if I recall our discussions on what is primary education and is this really meant for primary education, or, different societies. I mean, the role of heritage, we've discussed this, and I think also for us, like coming from a country from the global north, this has been and a really important learning process to understand, what importance this takes in your countries, and then also the different ways of thinking, even at a completely different level, the discussion around how to structure a chapter, where you can see, different ways of thinking, and how to bring this together. In short, the challenge to put something together which can be taken up by all teachers worldwide and can be adapted to their context. This has been a unique experience, and this is what makes this material special to me. So again, I think, when looking back at this process, I'm very grateful, and I would like to thank, mainly the group for their passion, because I mean, you've all heard it, I've been meeting weekly for years, so extremely passionate, and we had meetings like with people joining us from very different places, from holidays, from conferences, from meetings with their families, and still, they all basically made it possible, to be there for this meeting and to take this further. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And then, of course, also, I would also like to thank all the other colleagues who have been supporting this process, Preeti and Mina from the CE team, and apologies, from my side, for all the administrative headaches, we have given you, because, it's not that easy to get along with our rules and requirements. I know that. And also big thanks to Jim, who has been also extremely supportive in this process, and whom I will hear also, I think, now. So thank you very much. It's been really a treasure.
Thank you so much, Atusa. Thank you for so many words. I'll next go to Preeti. You already introduced what they did, and colleagues Meena and Aishwarya, who are here. Meena is, I think, out taking children camping in the south. So she said she might try to join, but she's in a forest somewhere. But over to you, Preeti.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Atusha, for your kind words. And the entire journey, if I look back, it's like really a very enriching learning experience for all of us at CE, and especially CE team, which was like in communication with all the authors and listening to their every Tuesday meetings and trying to understand how do we bring this while we are putting all resources together. So it's like really it's a happy moment for all of us. And because just before this launch, we have conducted a workshop with teachers and teacher educators here in India, and we were just wanted to listen to their reactions and reflections, and it was really, really positive, and that made us very confident about this entire hard work we have put in together with like different countries, bringing together their experiences and putting this together. So it's being a really wonderful experience. I just wanted to, because we are launching this and there are several questions related to if they can have this access to these resources. So I'll just share for all the participants, and also along with Handbook, we have developed web resources. So just give you an idea about the resources. So all the resources are available on our website, which is called handprint.in. So this is the main page, which you can find information about the concept of Handprint, how it has evolved, what are the different educational resources available. So on Handprint, one can find resources. Then there is a section on Handprint Care where one can know more about Handprint Care. So here, we have put together as a joint effort with the support from Engagement Global. And this is which we are basically looking forward here. So these are the educational resources which are now available. So you can see the handbook here, which can be downloaded. And already our authors have explained what are the different sections, how they have been compiled. And these are the web resources readily available for use. So you have all the theory chapters. You can see the background of how theory chapters have been designed and what is the framework and how you can basically refer to them. And these are all the chapters which can be downloaded. Then we have exemplars. These are very interesting. Like teachers have really found this very interesting in terms of putting whatever work they are doing right now with the school children, and especially with the subject disciplines, like how different subjects could be integrated using handprint care pedagogy. So the structure really worked, and teachers felt that this is very much very much can be applied what they are doing in the school. And especially we had a detailed session on storytelling where so many examples came in on related to indigenous culture and what is happening, and there was a lot of ideas shared by people. So I think we will have more thematic exemplars once these exemplars are shared with teachers. So these are like 8 exemplars we have for reference. And similarly, there are videos, there are thumbnails and PowerPoint presentation for teacher educators to use while conducting the training. And there are also very interesting third part of this handbook is picture stories. So teachers who have been using storytelling approach. So these picture stories, there are 5 picture stories, which Rob has helped us to put together on the Kamishibai style. So these could be used, and there are other several approaches through which storytelling approach can be used. So with this, I'll just request my colleague Aishwarya to say a few words, because she has been also part of the C team and while we were developing this. So few words, Aishwarya.
First of all, a very, very warm greetings to everybody. It's wonderful to see you all after a while, and thank you so much for having me today. For me, basically, this handbook, a lot of things that was already mentioned is definitely, this handbook gives a global perspective on environment and sustainability, but at the same time, it is very culturally located and it's very localized. For me, on a very personal level, this handbook is about hope, because we are specifically talking about, taking individual and collective positive action towards future sustainability. Of course, there is a global crisis, and that's why we are here. But especially with the age group that we are focusing from 6 to 13, the younger and the future generation, often they get very anxious about what is happening. But this handbook is really about hope and what we can do as an individual and as a collective for future sustainability. And of course, Preeti ma'am shared about the variety of materials that this handbook has, be it thematic exemplars or picture stories. It caters to different types of users. And one thing that I think all of us are very excited is how this is going to work out in schools. And we're really looking forward to hear from teachers, teacher educators, and also students on what they think, and really getting their inputs, and to also see how we can take it forward. That is all I wanted to say. But again, thank you so much. It's very humbling to be here and to meet the entire team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Aishwarya. And we miss Meena also today. That we reached a stage in our meetings where we had all the chapters, everything was right, but it was written by 4 or 5 different hands. It needed to be all put together. And Atusa was worried. And one day she and I were talking, and she said, Karthika, how do we now take it forward? And I said, we need someone who understands it and really puts it together. And I said, the best person I know who can do that is Jim. She said, have you spoken to Jim? I said, no, but as soon as this phone is over, I'm going to pick up the phone and call him. And Jim, with whatever else he was doing, which was very busy already, he doesn't say no to this. And it was wonderful to have Jim get hold of the whole book and really put it together, and it's wonderful what he did. So I wanted Jim to say a few words. Jim.
Well, thank you very much, Karthika. I don't think I did nearly as much as you implied, but it's very kind of you to say so. And thank you to Atusa for involving me. it really was a privilege to work on this handprint work, and it is a seminal resource. I'd like to challenge Charles Hopkins and ask him if this turning point is as significant as the Tbilisi principles were. Maybe we've got one of the most seminal resources ever with us. So I'd quickly like to take you back to July 2021. And Zygmunt Bauman said that knowledge springs from discontinuity. When things are going wrong, it sharpens the mind and creativity develops. So on the 10th of July 2021, Rob and I were struggling to get that quadrant model out that Krista described so beautifully this morning. And I arranged to phone him. Anyway, that morning I woke up and South Africa wasn't in a happy place. There was rioting going on and looting and all sorts of things. And I could hear lots of gunfire going on. There were guns going on. I thought, well, what do you do when there's gunfire? You phone Rob, you know? So I phoned Rob, and much to my surprise, when he answered the phone as calm as ever, I could hear loads of gunfire coming from his phone as well, you know, and I don't have very good hearing at the best of times, but when there's gunfire going on behind Rob, wherever he was, and behind me, wherever I was, it kind of sharpens your mind. We chatted a bit about the gunfire. It didn't seem to be getting any closer. And then Rob said, you know, we better sort out these quadrants. They are the most critical thing that we are facing in modern times. And with that kind of maturity, when you're in a battlefield, bullets are sort of flying around. And he says, you know, if only we can get these quadrants right, it'll really make this book special. So well done, all of you contributed. And it was just such fun working with everybody. And as I said, a seminal piece of work in our times that is now available for many, many years to come. And I think people like Charles and Krista have outlined it beautifully. Preeti, Meena, Atusa, many, many other people. And Aishwarya just saying it's about hope. And for me, if I've learned anything from this resource, it's to be positive. And handprints are about being positive. It's not a negative footprint, it's being positive. If you go into the world with a positive outlook, whether there's gunfire around you or whatever's going on, things will work out better. If you go into the world with a negative view, things won't work out as good. And I think CEE epitomizes to me a positive movement for change globally. And Kartikaya, shot and well done for all the colleagues and collaborators today. This is a special moment in EE and ESD globally. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you as always, Jim, for those wonderful words. I would now like to go to Hyla, who's, I think, found a place to sit down. we saw you walking around in this place. Hyla, you were the first in that, like in the photograph where I gave a t-shirt with the handprint on it. And we introduced it together in 2007. And you've done so much for it from behind the scene. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Kaya. And I'm walking around because we have load shedding and I had to find a place where I could get Wi-Fi. So and then inside it's noisy and outside it's noisy and it's next to the road. So, but I'm so happy to be here. So yes, I just want to say a huge congratulations on this work to everybody involved. And you know, I think the story coming through is that it's taken many years of incubating, but that's what it takes to produce vitally important work. And I remember this work starting in the year 2007 when we arrived in Ahmedabad in Kartikaya's place for the Tbilisi Plus 30 conference. It was yes, many years ago now. We were all 15 years old, younger then, Kartikaya. And you know, all the way that I was traveling to this big conference, the 30 years after Tbilisi, which is of course the first international environmental education conference, I was thinking about all of the things that we were struggling with in environmental education. And at that time, they were the types of things that, you know, of course, our societies were very concerned with many issues. And as JC's already indicated, these are like really deep and serious issues. But the other thing that we were also concerned about was that the way that environmental education was being taught And one of the things that was happening is that teachers were busy putting the world's problems on the shoulders of children. And children were getting depressed. And I just read an article which was about sort of teenage children who were incredibly depressed because of the, information about climate change and this feeling that, they had to carry this burden. There was also the problem of facts and values that were being seen as separate, and our teachers weren't sure how to deal with questions of ethics in education. And of course, there was the sort of dominant knowledge-centered approaches which left out so much of children's own knowledge and experience. So as we were traveling there, I was thinking about all of these things. And then as we arrived, Kotikaya said, I've got something for you to do. And please come and launch this Handprint Care project. And, as soon as I saw it, I fell in love with that project, as Rob has already said. And what I fell in love with was that it was a positive approach to education and learning. And it had such a simple concept, and the concept had come from children, as Charles also said. So we then, as Rob indicated, we thought this was something really worthwhile developing, especially developing into educational theory, so that it could be robust in, teacher education programs and so on and so on. And it needed substantive work. And so this ESD ExpertNet really was the place that took this work up, and this beautiful partnership that you're all seeing here. And as I totally hear the story about the passion and, the way in which this team has been working has been fantastic. So, but what is very important about this is that this model actually helps teachers to teach ethics-led learning. So they're able to bridge, the gulf between facts and values. They're also able to bridge the gulf between children's life worlds and the world of school. These are very, very crucial things. And it also helps to resolve the problem of downloading the environmental issues onto the shoulders of young children. So, and it gives them a way of looking into the future and practicing and acting and being part of those future building work. So I think, you've seen the quadrant, and this quadrant model is very significant because it bases itself in the life world of children. I'm getting such a lot of conversation going on here. Let me move again. Sorry. Yeah, so it places the foundations of education in the life world of children and in children's communities, as JC has also talked about. But what is very important is it doesn't limit knowledge to what children already know. It allows them to expand their knowledge from where they start and to grow this knowledge and to do it together and to build this notion of deliberative action learning. And so it helps children to unfold, learning from the known to the unknown. So it's a very important pedagogical principle, which unfortunately we've lost in modern education systems, and especially the decolonial modern education systems. We've lost that. So we need to reclaim it. We need to bring it back into the education system. And this project does it so nicely. I wanted to just, before I finish off, go back to the Ahmedabad Declaration, and this declaration it's still in my mind one of the best of all of the international environmental education conferences, not just because I was helping to write it, but because it was the way it was written. It was written with 1,000 people in a few days, amazing process. And this declaration called for a new kind of enlightenment. It called for transformative ethics-led learning. It called for collaboration with communities. It called for connections with children's life worlds. And its last statement says that environmental education and ESD should contribute directly to hands-on action and change through environmental education and ESD practice. And this is what this project does. So congratulations to Kotikaya and the team for implementing that recommendation fully. And then I want to go to the last recommendation of the World ESD Conference, which was hosted in 2021, 15 years later. And it says, transformative learning for people and the planet is a necessity for our survival and that of future generations, and that the time to learn and act for our planet is now. And of course, we now see UNESCO's transformative education movement, which Charles has mentioned. And I think that this project is just, as Dr. Shimrai said, it's so timely. I mean, could you ever see something more timely? If we look at all of the international education policy, this project is already implementing it in this visionary way. So I want to congratulate, but also thank this team who've worked so consistently and so hard to bring this work to us and to allow it to be shared so openly. Kotikaya said it belongs to all of us. He talked about adapting it for our countries, for our communities. And we've already been, you know, a little bit on the forefront there working with Rob, and we've adapted it into our teacher education course across 11 Southern African countries. And the teacher educators love it. They're working with it in their classes, in their communities. And we're using it in universities as well as in TVET education. So it can play its role into all of the education and training system. So I just wanted to end there and just say, Kotikaya said, you know, it's a doable approach. And I think that is its beauty. Even though there's 17 papers behind it, it's a doable approach. So thank you very much, Kotikaya. It's lovely to be here. And wow, what a way forward after all of those years of launching that lovely concept in Ahmedabad. So thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm glad so many of us have taken this forward. And I thank all of them who are here and many who are not. I would like, you know, this whole ethics-led education. I really was struggling with this word ethics till I was introduced to the Earth Charter. And it's been a long journey getting to know Miriam and the whole team and the way this whole thing works. And I'm so glad we could get Miriam to wake up early and join this meeting today. So Miriam, can we have you say something, Miriam?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kartikeya, and good morning and evening to everyone. First off, congratulations everybody who is here for this wonderful project. This session just helped me to remember that, or to remind me that I was there when you launched this idea, Kartikeya, in Ahmedabad. And I'm happy to see that so many of you, individuals and organizations, really engaged in this so passionately. We can certainly see how much effort and with your hearts and minds you have put together to make this happen now. For me, ethics and bringing ethical reflection into education processes should be seen an instrument of social transformation. Although when we talk about that, the response that I get back is often that this is too abstract, or it sounds as if you're imposing something. So there are many misperceptions regarding that. But Noel Preston, an ethics professor I met over 20 years ago, who unfortunately passed away not long ago, he wrote a book about understanding ethics, which I read nearly 20 years ago, and influenced my thinking quite a lot in terms of looking at ethics as an instrument of social transformation. And actually, he talks about that quite a lot. There is actually a saying here in Costa Rica that says, there is no chocolate without cacao. There is no chocolate without cacao, which basically reminds us that without this most basic and fundamental ingredient, which is cacao, we cannot produce chocolate. Therefore, the question for us is, how can we have ethical citizens, leaders, and decision makers without ethics-based education, despite the fact that many people resist to see the importance of that? So for years, in our work here at the Earthshot Education Center, we have been emphasizing this central and important role of making ecological and ethical literacy central in our context of education. But this means that we need resources, and I haven't seen the handbook, the Handprint handbook yet, but I trust this project, this resource will certainly flourish and will certainly be useful for many. I'm certainly already willing to dig into it and learn from it and incorporate it as part of our work and projects. As you know, not long ago, we launched a Nurse Charter and ESD school seal for schools. And I can already envision that this Handprint handbook can be inserted as part of our Earth Charter School seal and even our education programs here. But let me just end by saying I was particularly happy to see in your presentations that you seriously consider linking or finding ways to link education competencies with ESD competencies, finding a way to address this question about how can we do interdisciplinary approach in practice. And very happy to see two other things that you talked about, that you made use of stories and through this Handprint handbook. We also do that, and also the importance of looking at action, that ethics education is not just about an abstract conversation, but looking at action. It's central. So it's certainly very much aligned or in line with the work and research we have been doing here. I'm very happy to see this and wish just this project to continue to flourish. And I will look for ways to certainly bring it into part of our work. We are certainly very open and willing to do that. So congratulations, all of you.
Thank you, Marian. And I think the Charter's set of schools it'll be wonderful to work together. There we have Bernard, and Bernard, it is in those corridors in UNESCO that this whole discussion started, and many of us met initially as the reference group and in different avatars and in different conferences and other things. And Bernard, you're also been someone who is looking after the Earth Charter as part of your thing and various other duties. And I'm so glad you are here today to share this moment. Over to you, Bernard.
Well, hello to everyone. I was very happy to be part of this event. And I was very happy to be able to live through, or actually, well, not quite live through the handbook, since it was the PDF version, but I would say it looks great. It is, I mean, you do call it the generic, right? The generic approach, which then can inspire for many parts of it. There are certain parts I just love, the story part, all these things that teachers, educators, animators, trainers often forget. They tend to stick to the PowerPoint and the little video, or take you outside, but forget that the storytelling is something that's part of our lives and part of things we can do informally. Chuck mentioned the Transforming Education Summit and all these ideas and concept of transforming education and how education should help us rethink how we teach, where we teach, what we teach. But I would say the New York event was a lot of talk, not much action. And this handbook actually gives us elements for the actions. I think in terms of what we are pursuing at UNESCO with the ESD for 2030 framework and roadmap, clearly many things, there are many synergies there. And I think for me, the handbook provides some very easy things that a teacher, a trainer can pick up and say, oh, yeah, I can try to do that. It offers basically the 1, 2, 3 to actually doing the thing. Because too many training handbooks tend to have too much theory and blah, blah. I think it's what you have there is great. It's nice to hear that some people are looking at putting it in other languages, because I would say that's my thing, is that we need to have it in as many languages as possible. Maybe not the whole thing, but certain elements. I think if me also picks up on some of the key things that we need to have critical thinking, the issue of, compassion, cooperation, community, all come out of this handbook. And I would say my last remark, I will quote somebody, which was quoted in a meeting I was in this morning. I was in a public hearing session of the European Commission around youth and how do you get youth to mobilize. And there was this quote from Gus Spett, who said, let me read it to you. I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation, and we scientists don't know how to do that. So yes, the scientists don't know how to do that, but I think we could say the same thing. We've had 30 years of all kinds of educational things thrown at poor teachers all over the world, each new minister of education coming up with their new grandiose idea that everything will, and that has not worked. But things like the handbook are things that will work because, as you said, it's a bunch of people that came together to work on it. It was tried, tested, and now it's there to be used. So thanks again. I think it's a great material, and happy to have been part of this launch.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Wonderful to have you here. And we have Katya from UNESCO's ASP.NET. Katya, wonderful to have you, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello to everybody from my side as well. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to say a few words here. As mentioned, I'm working for the UNESCO Associated Schools Network. It's a network of schools from all levels of education with around 12,000 members in 182 countries. And one of the groups of members are teacher education institutions. So a really big thank you on behalf of the unit for ASP.NET for creating this handbook. We'll not miss to share it with the network. It really aligns well with our mission to act as a laboratory of ideas for transformative education for global citizenship and sustainable development, which is part of this wider UNESCO agenda that's been mentioned by several of you here today, to reimagine education together and to build a new social contract. I've had the tremendous pleasure of collaborating with Rob and Jim over the past years for a project we co-created with teacher educators and student teachers. It was very much inspired by Hala and many of your work through the Sustainability Starts with Teachers project. Yeah, and I mean, from that experience, I can definitely say there's a huge demand for such a resource. A question that came up consistently in our discussions was how can we really create this agency in learners to act for the common good? How can we move from this individualistic competition that we see everywhere still today towards these pedagogies of collaboration and solidarity? And having had the opportunity to look at different draft versions of the Handprint Care, I can definitely say it provides concrete answers for educators to address this challenge. Ethics-based learning, action and experience-based learnings, these learner-centered approaches, leading localized inquiry to identify solutions for communities' matters of concern, putting the SDGs at the center, and creating, yeah, and many of you've mentioned this, creating this alternative discourse, one that is not gloomy and painting the end of the world on the wall, but one that is full of hope and really motivates action through positive handprints of care. It's really encouraging to see such a resource come out, and this focus, on providing concrete approaches to putting these ideas into practice is so useful. So a big congratulations and thank you for everyone involved in this process of creating this useful tool. We'll certainly work with it through the ASP.NET, and thank you for having me here today as well.
Thank you, and wonderful to think that ASP.NET will use it in ways. As I said, it's a generic book which can be adapted to different situations, and we need to find ways of doing it. We come to an end of this launch program, but if there are any questions, Preeti, on the thing, then we should.
Yeah.
We
There
should
are
deal with
one
that.
or two questions I think we can
Yeah,
take.
we just have a few minutes.
Because I have responded regarding where they can get the copy. So there is a question which from Mr. Godfrey, who is educator and refugee living in the camp. So they are asking that how they can create clubs in schools and have regular talks with them. How could Engagement Global help refugees? So this is mainly question to EG from a participant. Look, like understanding how Handprint is connected to what they are doing in terms of reaching out to people who don't have reach to education. So maybe Atusa want to respond or?
Yes, sure. I can quickly answer this. Do I understand it right that we're talking about camps in India, right? Refugees in India.
Location is not mentioned.
Okay.
Not sure.
Well, okay. So So my suggestion would be to actually connect with our colleagues from CEE, because we just with our activities we focus on institutions in Germany, and what we have provided as support was through the ESD expert net. So usually we don't support directly activities in other countries. This has been really an exception through this international network where Germany was part of the network. So our focus is on Germany, and in India we have such wonderful partners as CE who I'm sure who can support you with this.
So there is one question from a youth who is asking, how can we correlate handprint in teaching, and how handprint actions be followed in routine life? So these are two questions.
I think, Preeti, that question is, I would say, see the book. This is the website. There are many examples which we are putting up there. And I think this whole thing is about working together and being together. And I think with that positive energy, we want to move forward. And I just wanted to now just thank everyone to really come together. For many of you, it was really short notice. One of the reasons for the short notice was we ourselves were not absolutely certain whether this Tuesday it's going to actually be put together or not, but it did do that. And we have a wonderful handbook. I hope we will all contribute to it. I think it's got many other stories, exemplars, and others which we want to put on the web from the experiences. And the more we try this, and the more we research it, I know JC is going to do something in Mexico as well. South Africa already has many things happening. In Europe, with the German translation, I think we will see something happening. I think there's interest in Japan already. We had a visit from Japan recently. They saw the work and they said, how do we get in? Unfortunately, the timing of today's event is a bit late for Japan. So we couldn't get all our colleagues from Japan and Australia to join us on this. But thank you all very much for this. And let's all be in touch and work further on this. Thank you. Okay.
Kartikeya, do we meet next Tuesday?
Good question.
Good question. I suppose we should, just to digest all this. Yeah.